pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
First item of business is to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 5th.
There are two minutes, that's in record.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Motion passed.
Water signing, Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve all claims as presented on the agenda for today.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve all claims as presented. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Motion passed. And with that, we're ready for Clerk Sheridan Milburn. Good morning, Sheriff.
Okay, so I gave you a paper, there's some details on there. I only went back as far as when we went to vote centers. But the satellite workers and the election day workers have not had any pay increase since at least 2011. It may have been prior to that, but 2011. With the gas prices being higher, and I've renegotiated my budget that I've submitted to the council. Even with these increases, it will only raise that portion of my budget requested by $98 for the year. I think it's important that I cut corners on other things, office supplies, be more frugal with that and give these workers an increase. We are nowhere close to where other counties are our size on what they pay. If you look under the election day workers, you'll see, it looks like it's a huge increase. The inspectors currently make $100 or $180 a day. I'm proposing $225. It's actually only $25 increase. I'm wanting to roll over their food allowance. Every worker is allowed a $20 food allowance for the election, per election. I'm wanting to roll that into their pay. There were some concerns with the last election. Some people had some health issues. The inspectors weren't getting the food maybe there to help offset some of their dietary needs. This would put it back on the poll workers to bring their own food. They're still getting their pay. They would just provide their own food, or they could still have the inspector get food, but you would just pay for it versus charging it and then me paying it at the end of the election.
So currently, an inspector gets $180 plus $20 for their food allowance.
Yes,
So they currently get $200.
right.
Well,
Unless they don't spend it. Currently, right now, if they don't spend $20 per election worker, that money just stays in the budget, it doesn't get spent. I talked to other,
How often is that?
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised on how many don't turn in the full $100 budget amount.
But it goes directly to the people that make the food, not to the person. For instance, if the ladies at the church bring in the meal, they get paid, not the workers.
If they get paid if a receipt is turned in. I've had some that just voluntarily bring in the food and they turn in no receipt. So that $100 for that polling location doesn't go anywhere. I'm proposing that we just let the workers have that no matter what. which is what other counties do. Other counties, it's in their pay, they don't have it separated out, a food budget and a pay budget. They just have it all,
So you're gonna just say that they're gonna bring their food,
yes,
and nobody's going to be bringing in food.
unless the inspector chooses otherwise, and people pay them the night of the election, or the day of the election. Well, it's not working the way that it's set up. If you have dietary needs, people aren't getting fed when they need to be fed. If they bring their own food, they eat when they wanna eat. It's, you're not contingent on a restaurant getting the food there, or someone else bringing it in from the outside, it's already there.
Gentlemen, what do you think?
Well, we can approve, we still gotta go for council.
Actually, this portion you set by statute. They could deny my budget, but you have to set these per diem amounts. And my understanding is if you set them, they've kinda gotta be approved.
That's probably right. I mean, I don't remember specifically about that, but there's several other things in the code where the commissioners have the authority to, set the rate. And yes, the council has to appropriate, but basically they have to make the appropriation because of the authorities in the board of commissioners.
And like I said, I've cut
I can
other
look it
areas
up.
of my budget so that this will only increase those line items by $98 for the entire year.
Do we have trouble getting inspectors and stuff to come for this little pay? Have you ever had an issue with that because of the pay?
We don't get workers as quickly, maybe. We've had other people from Carroll County go to other counties to work because the pay is better, I do know that. I just think with, like I said, gas prices, everything's on the rise. And if we're gonna keep quality workers, I think we need to increase what we're paying them to encourage them to come back. And it is a long day, yes, it's a long day. You know, they're voting from 6 to 6, but the poll workers arrive at 5 AM and they're not allowed to leave until it's all torn down, so it may be 7 o'clock before they leave. So it's a very long day.
It hasn't been increased since 2011.
At least since 2011. I didn't go back any further, I just stopped at the vote centers, and we went to vote centers in 2011.
I'll second that. Dave's on unreasonable request, this being made, so I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve, this schedule of, pay for election day workers. Right.
And it also addresses the satellite workers, which are the Saturday, the two Saturdays prior to the election.
It's for satellite workers, election day workers, and election night workers. All three on this schedule. My mistake. So I call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Now we are ready for County Highway Engineer Ken. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. I had a couple of requests to chip and seal a county road, and gravel roads, at the property owner's expense. I gave them an estimate. They're both willing to do that, providing we have approval from the commissioners.
These aren't for their private drives or anything?
No, it's for the
their-
county road.
County road.
Yeah.
So going 2 layers.
Yeah. So I gave an estimate for 2 layers. And yes, we will have to maintain that road as a chip and seal road. That's minimal compared to a paved road. It's still more than gravel.
This will be done after all the other county work's done,
We'll fit it in that as to where we are
but you're in the area, that's when.
in the area, yeah. And I won't do it until I get payment from the property owners.
Yeah, did you?
I just have the 2 at this point. I have had requests for others, but I'm gonna say, if they're approved, I won't do them this year. Our guys are quite busy this year.
So if we approve it, you'll do these 2, but if you
Yeah.
need more, they'll be on next year's.
Yeah.
This one that is, quarter of a mile. Is it for, just to their house and there's more road that's not paved?
Yes, it comes off of 250 south, so it's 100 south, 250 west, sorry. So it starts at where we're dropping off at 250 west, around the corner onto 100 south. Yeah, I've got a map there, and up to their drive. There's about another 3/4 mile of gravel road. Beyond that.
This one here, yeah, sure. So they're real close to each other?
Yes, yeah.
Actually, the Kansas is very thick.
You know what?
The small section is really big from here,
Yeah.
and the other one is back up.
But it's 0.28 miles, a little section, 0.74 miles. It's a long stretch.
Yeah.
Well, it makes a lot of difference that it's our road. I, had a request from somebody to do probably a mile private road. And I said, no, we don't do that.
No, we can't do that.
He was one to pay, but
Well, they've done this before.
I think we have.
It's been done
I mean, if they wanna spend their own money to do it, it's beneficial for them. Maybe they got health reasons, they don't want the dust from the gravel.
I agree.
It's cheaper, still cheaper than going to the hospital. In the hospital, but. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the request.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve the requests of, at this time, we'll say Gary Duff and Angela and Terry Tapman to, first one to pave 3/4 of a mile of county road, and the other one is just a little over 1/4 of a mile of county road at 15 feet wide at their expense. Motion, second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you. Just a quick update, we are chip and seal right now, we're about a third of the way done for this year.
Really?
Yeah. So depending on weather.
Where are you right now? Where they at?
We're on the southwest side of the county, and we'll be working our way east. And then hop over to the north side of 18 and do that
Going
side.
counterclockwise around the county?
This time, yeah.
That's good.
How we doing on that tile in Bear Creek? That Mr. Warren, it still ain't done yet.
I know, it is on their list, they've got, tiles, they've been ordered and have come in, but the guys that are doing chip and seal also do the tiles, so. Until my chip and seal program is done, or we get some open days, then
Are they chip and sealing the day with all the moisture out there today?
they are replacing the tile on 100 North today.
Where they're making road cuts for,
It's mainly for cutting for culvert.
yeah, most of them aren't they, so they can pump manure over.
There's some that people come in and ask for a culvert to go in, and that's at their expense. But we have been requiring, cutting pavement, if it's an asphalt pavement, or chip and seal, cut it. It makes for a cleaner cut and cleaner, patch.
You cut it?
For our work, yes. If it's a private, we just require that it be done.
Okay. You go out and really look that over again when they get done with it, to make sure it's fairly smooth across there and everything?
Yes, and I would like to revise our permitting process, application, to require more, maintenance of that cut after they replace it.
So
Because right now, all they do is fill it once, and then we maintain it afterwards.
And of course it sinks.
Yeah,
Just on the way up here, I saw a line painted across, the 400 south, just west of 75, the road is there. And I thought, I don't know why there'd be a line painted across there unless it's for a culvert to go under for a manure line.
yeah, I can't
That's what
recall.
made me think of it going up there.
We'll take a look at it, but I don't recall seeing a permit for that.
How we getting on our lines that,
That, I'll be submitting that proposal out for the, line payments. So incorporate pavements, projects that we have with pavement this year. So I'll include those additional, like 100 North, just in front of the hog plant. We'll be resurfacing that, so I'll have to repaint all those stripes.
we can include the covered bridge area for that too?
Yeah, that'll be on that same packet.
I was down there this weekend, and I see what he's talking about, there needs to be something there.
Mhm.
Just if we have a little slide.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a lot of good. There's a,
That's for the crosswalks, yeah.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of those spots where it's like this throughout the county, that I'd like to have signs at least put up alongside that says, keep right. You do that or not? I mean, is that?
It depends on if there's a site problem, so I'd have to look at
There's
each
a
one.
what?
A site problem, so I have to look at each one of those.
Yeah, yeah.
So it could be line drives in those areas too.
Yeah. A lot of them, right?
A lot of line drives, which creates a hazard, somebody going out driving.
A lot of those date back to before we had a driveway.
Yeah, and Line Drive is no longer a, sign that's been approved by the IMUTCD. So it's now Hill obstructs view, so they've changed the sign.
What's the same today?
Hill obstructs view. I like Line Drive myself better.
Line drive,
I do
meter
too,
drive.
I think it's screwed up with hell.
Well, I have a never-ending request from people who live on 500 South to get.
Yeah, I've got those, that's in that striking packet.
Anything else for him? Anybody else out here have anything to bring up?
And the sign over by, I talked to you about Ambridge Drive, about the county maintenance.
Yeah,
And the no outlet
yeah, I was
sign.
putting up I'll check on that, that should have been located already, just to show where that is. I know he had ordered some new signs, so I'll check and see if that was it. I thought we had enough at the outlet signs,
So it's gonna be no outlet and a county maintenance in sign there, or just no outlet?
just no outlet.
No outlet. The road beyond that, or the drive beyond that's private drive, and it's probably better than on county roads.
Mhm.
So they don't protect their investment.
Yeah,
So you can't blame them for that. Private drive.
They put up their own.
yeah, and I mentioned that to him, that they could.
They could.
And I think I did see a private drive sign put up there already.
Private drive is fine, but I still think the county needs to say there's no outlet, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the people goes back there and violates the property owner's right, they know it's on them. So if they mess it up, they're gonna be the one getting in trouble. Yeah, I'd like to see that being put up.
Where was that?
So, Lower Hambridge, off of 775 north, I believe.
It's right on the edge,
Uh-huh.
right on the edge. Bridge of what? County,
That-
county.
okay, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lester out here, are we ahead of time? Tim, would you like to do your part?
Sure. First thing is the information circulated over the weekend about, and it may have, circumstances may have changed, about the burn ban. I just wanted to refresh everybody's recollection of what the board has already done. You adopted an ordinance in 2020 for the issuance of burn bans, and what it does is define what open burning is, and it also specifies the procedure for issuance of executive orders by the Board of Commissioners, which are effective not only for unincorporated areas, but they're also effective for incorporated areas of the county. And also directs which agencies enforce the ordinance, and how the executive order is distributed and publicized. So that was adopted in 2020. There's violation can be treated as a punishment as contempt of the board's order, and since it's an order of the Board of Commissioners, in which case, either if the officer can choose to make it that, which would be the simplest one, but just it's punished as contempt of the Board of Commissioners order. And that statute says it's a fine of up to $3 and one day in jail.
Wait a minute, $3 and 1 day in jail.
And/or. That's contempt of any order of the Board of Commissioners, by the way, not just burn bans. Or it can be prosecuted as an ordinance violation through the courts. But, so, the officer has that option, the Board of Commissioners have that option. If the ordinance directs the officers to, authorizes them to use the uniform citation, ticket summons that they use for traffic offenses, to use for this and cite the executive order. And they are supposed to file it with the auditor, and the auditor puts it on the agenda, and it's supposed to be brought up at a regular special meeting of the Board of Commissioners within 30 days after the filing of the citation. That's the way that works.
And we can send somebody to jail for 1 day?
Yes, you can. It's been on the books since
Something all the time.
it's,
Problem is, there's no room in jail.
You look at the commissioners manual, I'll show you the page and paragraph where that's in there. It doesn't just apply to this, it applies to any written order of the Board of Commissioners. I've seen it used for people that were violating, not using a county bridge when you're prohibited, or the weight limit and so forth. It can be used for that, Trucker has to come into the commissioners, it doesn't matter whether it's $1 or, it's the jail that usually gets their attention, But anyway, so it can be any of that.
What
So-
about, those who don't clean up their yards and stuff like that, does that fall under that?
No, that is, that's under a specified statute. And the statutes control, if there's not a statute on a subject matter, and if it's a general matter or ordinance of controlling conduct, then the law that pertains to enforcement of commissioner orders apply.
So, those
We gotta
statutes,
follow
are those state
The
statutes?
statute doesn't allow the commissioners to put anybody in jail. The nuisance properties.
So that gets some people's attention.
Yeah, they would. They haven't extended that to nuisance properties.
Okay, this is regards to the burn ban.
Yeah. If you issue an order, the ordinance also authorized that the order, revoking the ban on open burning and related activities, and that describes what those activities are, can be issued by the board in any lawfully convened regular, special, or emergency meeting. And in cases where a majority cannot be expeditiously convened, such executive order may be issued for the board by an officer of the board after consultation with the director of Carroll County Emergency Management. So that would be the chairman and vice chairman. That's the issuance of the order. At the same time that the board adopted this ordinance back in 2020, I drafted a stock order for the commissioners to sign. I went ahead and put in today's date on the one that you've got in front of you, but you may not need to do that now. But it's,
You don't have that.
that's all right. So you may not need that now anyway. You may need it closer to harvest, more. I mean, it's usually more of a harvest related thing when there's standing crop that's dry, you don't want to. That's when they're most frequently issued anyway.
I'd like to go and make that where it's in EMA's hands, where you can say, hey, commissioners, this fire chief says this area is drier than this other area, so can we put just this area in, because the way these rains has been lately, I didn't get no rain, but my neighbor 3 houses down got all kinds of rain.
Well, it's gotta give the public sufficient notice and be publicized and available. So it has to be described in the order. So if you're gonna particularize, make some particular areas subject to the ban and other areas not, I don't, you'd have to draft the order that way. It can't be delegated to the director entirely, because there are penalties attached to it. And,
The fire chiefs know more about their area
Right,
than
exactly.
the 3 of us do. I mean,
Right, so you take the input that they give to the EMA, emergency management director, and then translate that into what you need to put into the order. So the order's on computer, we can tweak it any way you need to, so.
I knew before we got this rain, I think we needed one.
I do too, yeah.
So, but right now, I mean,
So that's,
y'all will get.
there's a plan in place, so if it comes up and it needs to be done again, the communication that preceded today's meeting could be held, and you let me know how you want it particular, somebody let me know, and we can have it ready. And like I say, if it's so urgent that it can't wait for a meeting, an officer of the board can sign the executive order. So that's that, unless there's other questions.
I have one, number 4 on that executive order, can it be specifically who gets that copy of the order, not just for accordance to the county ordinance?
There's a list,
I know,
it can be,
I think it would be more,
it's covered by the ordinance, promptly upon issuance of an executive order, the auditor shall transmit electronic copies of the order to, and then there's five categories: the director of emergency management, the sheriff, who shall promptly notify all other police agencies in Carroll County, the directory of Carroll County E911, who shall notify the chiefs of all fire jurisdictions, clerk treasurers of the incorporated towns of the city of Delphi, and news media to whom notices of the board's meetings are given. Those are 5 categories. I can add that paragraph to you if you want.
I would think it would be nice,
I can do
I
that.
mean, not everybody will know that.
Okay, I'll add that to the form.
What are we adding?
Who gets the order?
The verbiage that's in the ordinance about who the order goes to, I'll just copy and paste it into the sample order, so that's in every order.
Yes,
Hi, where is this ordinance located so that the readers can look at it? Is it on the website, the county website?
What do we want?
The ordinance from 2022, the burn ban?
2020.
Huh?
It was done in 2020.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
The ordinances are filed in the auditor's office in the ordinance book.
So anybody who wants to look at it has to come in.
Or call, and we can send them a copy.
Oh, okay.
anything you wanna move together?
Sure. I just wanted to report, I distributed the commissioners a copy of the court's order dismissing the complaint against the county that was filed by the 2 residents of the state of Michigan. And the court is also awarding the county attorney fees for that case. So that's happened last week. It's been dismissed, yes. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, we're gonna go to Bill Sylvester. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Bill is with Apex Insurance Group.
For dissemination. That's you. I know you won't. So, as last we spoke, a couple weeks ago, you voted to move the stop loss carrier to AccuRisk. And basically what that did is it afforded you an little over $11,000 in fixed cost cuts, but your claims liability increased by about $120-some thousand. Okay? So, with that in mind, 2 weeks prior to that, we discussed the probability of leaving your premiums or your premium equivalents the same as they are now, right? With the exception of decreasing the employee's portion for employee and family to make that more affordable for families, right? That's kind of what we're thinking about doing. So, this sheet here, is your current contribution rates going across the top for employees, employee and spouse, employee and child, and employee and family. And then below that, taking the employee and family contribution for families, yes, from employee and family from $149.95 and decreasing it to $129.50. Can you see that there? Is that, and we kinda came up with, our actuary came up with the $129.50 because it's a little bit more than employee spouse, more than employee with a child. So it's a $2,126 decrease for the total employee contribution amount of, to the county over the course of the year. And it affords, a monthly cut of about $20 per
On
month.
that second column, it says eighty rate per month, it should be 50, not 54. It's with per pay.
That's $50 per month. Oh,
Well, per pay,
I know why that's,
okay, because of the extra
yes.
pay in the
Yes.
year, okay. That's my question.
That's what it was.
On the extra pay, do they have to pay their insurance on that, like, to get free? Do they still pay insurance out of that first pay? You get it $3.99.
It's 25 per pay. So that's just averaging out, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the idea is that every other contribution amount stays the same. The family, employee and family gets reduced by $20.45 per pay. I sent you this morning, or last night.
How'd we come up with the 2126, Bill?
Our actuary did basically because if you're keeping all the other tiers the same, and he doesn't wanna make that a lesser amount than employee and spouse, employee and child, so it's a little bit more because the employee and family could be an endless number of people. Realistically, you can put that number anywhere you want to put it.
Question?
I just have a comment, about the health insurance program, because I know you three aren't, eligible for the coverage, which, since I have your attention, I would like to say I don't agree with that. I think that, like me, you are commissioners 24/7, and so you therefore should be entitled to the same benefits as I am. But I don't know, since you don't have the coverage, you may not be aware, but our deductibles are not, Bill can explain, embedded. And I recently, figured that out because my husband and I both used to be employed by the county. He took a leave of absence, therefore I added him to my policy, which increased my premium. But what I did not realize is that the deductible, the $2,000 individual deductible, $3,000 out-of-pocket limit, that no longer applied, basically. Since I had multiple people on my coverage, I had to meet the family deductible, which means that my deductible is $4,000 on my out-of-pocket limit was $6,000. The direct effect that had on me was I have medications heart medicines that I take, that I pay over $800 for one prescription each month. I had met that the first few months of the year. And when I added him to my coverage, I had to meet that $2,000 deductible all over again and pay that deductible. So, which I've dealt with that, but I just wanted you to understand the impact. So if you have a single mother who has her children or her child on her policy, and they have no claims that their child breaks their leg or arm or something and goes to the emergency room or is hospitalized, that single mother, in addition to paying the almost $3,000 or whatever it is a year in her annual premiums, she's gonna have $6,000 out-of-pocket expense for that one incident. So I know you're concerned about the family coverage and the impact that has on employees, but consider the fact that we do not have embedded deductibles and that, those limits, it's not the individual deductible. If you have other questions on that, I'm sure Bill can explain that better than I can.
You explained it pretty well.
You're explaining pretty well.
She explained it pretty well, but here's, I mean, I know we've talked about this several times, in our meetings. An embedded deductible means that once an individual in that family has met their deductible, that individual is no longer has to meet the family amounts, that individual has met their individual deductible because it's embedded. Yours is not embedded, which means that once an individual in a family has met their deductible, they've got to go all the way to the end to the family deductible because it's not embedded. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, very unique situation in that her husband, she and her husband both had their own policies, so they only had to meet their individual deductible, which the husband evidently didn't use any of his. She did, when he was added to hers and taken off of his, even though if he had any claims, he would have had to meet that deductible. He's added to hers, so now she has $2,000 worth, I believe, $2,000 more worth of deductible to meet because it's not embedded. If we were to move from a non-embedded, which you have, to an embedded, by law, it would raise everyone else's deductible that's on the plan, like all of the individuals. You have 78 individuals on the plan, and employee spouse, employee child, employee family, there's only 14 combined. So an embedded deductible has to be at a higher amount. I can't remember what that is. It's probably $800 more that everyone would have to meet if you had an embedded deductible. Does that make sense? Everyone else's individual deductible would have to be higher if you had an embedded deductible versus a non-embedded. So we've kind of talked about leaving it non-embedded, which is kind of unusual today, but you have such a low individual deductible that it would hurt everyone else because their deductible would have to go up if it was embedded. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I wish it wasn't that way.
Well, the law, have it in front of me, but the law is that if a deductible is embedded, it has to be a higher amount, and I think that's $2,800 instead of $2,000. So
if we stay with the non-embedded, it helps our employees, the ones that are single, most of them.
correct.
So why couldn't we give the ones who take the family plan, give them more in their health savings account? Offset the cost. It's only, you said what, 14, 15 people that take the family?
There's only about 14 people that it affects right now.
And you give them,
That's that employee spouse, employee children,
Right.
employee family.
right, and ones that do that, we can ask the council to give them more in their HSA account than if you're just a single with the Lord.
Here's the issue with that. So to do that, to make that go away, you have to put $2,000 in each of those people that take that $2,000 a year to make the deductible an embedded, to make it equal, right? So not all of those people are gonna meet that deductible or out-of-pocket max. They're not gonna meet that. So let's say 3 or 4 people do, you're giving 14 people, $2,000 extra when only 2, 3, 4 people might meet that. Does that make sense? You can do it if you want. You could put an HRA in place. Here we go. You can put an HRA in place that says anybody that's on those 3 tiers, the county will pay anything over the individual deductible amount to the out-of-pocket max for family. So that you can bridge that with an HRA, and some people do that. Some